rules, conditions, and regulations. Now, that might sound a bit stuffy, but it's not, because this is probably the most important session of the whole week. This is what the future will be for purebred Arabian racing. Behind me, we've got the leading administrators, literally, from all over the world. And who's going to keep these guys and ladies in check? Well, the guy at the very end, he's a man we know well. He's a man who, years and years ago, rode the winner of the greatest steeplechase in the world, the Grand National. He rode a horse called Ayala, and he sprung a massive surprise. He was one of the top national hunt jockeys in Great Britain, but for the past 30 years, he's been looking after things in Abu Dhabi. So he's seen it from both sides of the fence, and he is the man who's going to be the moderator for our final session. Ladies and gentlemen, let's have a big cheer for the one and only Pat Buckley.
Tomo, he tries to embarrass me by exalting my virtues. But anyway, welcome, ladies and gentlemen. A little bit disappointed we don't have a few more of our owners and trainers from the United Arab Emirates here, because this is one of the important, most important things connected with racing, really. Rules, regulations, and also we're going to discuss conditions, which a lot of people have their own ideas about. But anyway, it'll evolve itself as we go along. Introduce our panel. We have Mr. Graham Walcroft here. Graham, welcome. And can you just give us an idea as to what you do in the day job?
Well, I'm chairman of the Pattern Race and Handicapper Committee, and also chairman of the Supervisory Committee, which enforces the pattern race rules. So that's well, we go on as we go along. Then we have Mr. Ahmed Said Al-Marzouki. Can you give the audience an inkling into what your day job is?
Sure. Good evening, everyone. My name is Ahmed Said. I'm in charge of the sport court in Abu Dhabi, which is arbitration center belong to CAS. Also, I'm a team manager for a football team, Al Jazeera Club. I was a football player for many years. As a professional with the Al Jazeera Club, also I played with the national teams, and I have a lot of sport. I work with the UAE Federation as a team manager for the UAE national team before the Brazilian World Cup. I have so many experience with rules and regulations. Also I work in the marketing with IPIC. I'm in charge of the sports sponsorship in IPIC, which is one of the sponsors here. A lot of sport history, and I will be happy to be here. I'm so happy to be here, and also I would like to thank Sheikh Mansoor for all supports, Lara Sawaya, everyone here. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for that. Very interesting. Then we have Mr. Hayam Debak. You're going to speak in French, I think, yes?
Yes.
Can you just give us where you come from and what you do?
Merci beaucoup. Je suis le directeur des courses au Maroc, dans une structure qui a un modèle assez particulier, puisque nous sommes une compagnie qui s'occupe aussi de l'élevage des chevaux à travers les haras nationaux, des courses, mais aussi des paris hippiques. Bien sûr, je tiens à remercier le festival pour cette invitation et Lara en particulier, et je vous remercie.
Thank you very much, Hayam, and we'll discuss a few of your habits later on. Pam Cordry next. Welcome, Pam. Nice to come. You come, I know, from Scandinavia. Yeah.
Yes.
Can you give us an insight into your? I know you're a handicapper as well.
I'm the Scandinavian handicapper for the thoroughbreds. We have about 2,000. I also do the Arabian horses, but I'm on the committee together with Graham and 4 others with the handicapping the Arabians and making sure they keep up to the regulations.
Regulations, that's the name of the game, isn't it? Now we go on to Mr. Gadot from France. Can you give us an insight into your involvement?
Mr. Chairman, I'm coming from France, as you know, I'm working for France Gallo, which is a regularity authority for racing, but also for breeding in France. We have the responsibility of pure Arabian racing, and with that mission, I look at the horse department and the control department, and especially the doping department, and have the privilege to attend the IFAR registrar meeting. And I'm very pleased to be here, and I thank the festival organization committee for having invited me, and especially Lara. Thank you very much, Lara.
Thank you very much indeed for that bit of info. Now we go on to Neil Abrahams, who I know is a man of many jackets, and one of his main ones is handicapping pure Arabians in the United Arab Emirates for about the past, 20 years?
24.
24, sorry about that. Anyway, give the audience a clue as to what you...
Well, I came out originally as the UAE Arabian horse handicapper, moved on to other things, including that job. I sit on the international panel, the pattern committee for IFAR, on the supervisory committee for IFAR, and I work to assist a lane race course with their day-to-day operation.
Thank you, Neil. Now we go to Michelle Youngdale. Michelle, you're from the US of A, I think, yeah?
Yes.
Let's hear what you do.
Well, you asked previous about people's day jobs. My day job is not in the horse industry. I work in environmental health and safety, specifically managing occupational health and safety programs. But I also manage my husband's and my horse farm. He's an Arabian horse trainer. I sit on the HAC race committee and have been in Arabian horse racing for about 20 years.
A little bit of experience, eh?
A little bit.
Well done, thank you very much. Right, ladies and gentlemen, we know who we have here now. Yes, it's back again. The racing industry, we're going to try and talk about rules and regulations. Each racing industry has its own body of stewards who try to administer the rules and regulations. Now, Graham, could you give us an insight into how stewards are selected? Is it on their sort of racing knowledge, or how do they become stewards? I know nowadays there are certain schools who are training younger stewards, candidates, to become professional stewards.
Well, I can only speak on behalf of my experience in England. Yeah. Originally, people, I think, were, in the olden days, were selected for stewards mainly from from their position and who they knew. These days, things are done much more professionally, and for people to become stewards, they have to undergo, certainly in England, a fair amount of training before they can become stewards. This is essentially because the rules become so much more complex. It's certainly in relation to race riding, and therefore the whole stewarding system, as I said, has become more professional. As to how people can apply, I mean, they still apply. Essentially, they get into the sport because of their knowledge of horse racing in the first instance. But nobody can become a steward without undergoing a fair degree of training before they're allowed to steward properly on the race course. As far as Arab racing is concerned, in England, people have the Arrows have their own body of stewards, but all these as well these days are also attend seminars run by what is now the BHA before they actually steward on the race course. You
just mentioned the BHA there, and we're going back to the UK. Now, Are they the governing body of ARO or not? RO? Do they play the rules? Or what?
Yeah, the BHA are in overall charge of the regulations for Arabian racing in England. ARO, which is the administrative body, actually oversees the sport and runs it on a day-to-day basis, but ARO do have to refer to the BHA for any changes to the rules.
Thank you. Pam, you've been in Scandinavia for quite a long time. Now, mainly we're Arabian horse orientated here, very much so. But the rules in Scandinavia, are they the same for both thoroughbred and Arabian horses?
More or less. Everything comes under everything is run through the jockey club. The racing, the entries, the programme, so the rules too.
And you being a handicapper, you come under the, Scandinavian Jockey Club is it called?
Yeah, well, no, it's 3 different countries. But they are so close, they run under one another's regulations. It's the same horses that go round, and I represent all 3 countries. And
you do?
I handicap all 3 countries.
Yeah. We'll go on into handicapping a bit later on in the system, how it's administered, etc., you know. It's an inexact science, I hear, but I won't insult anybody. Mr. Gadot, may I ask you, you work for, is it the French Galop or what?
France Galop is the regulatory body for racing in France, for gallop racing. So France Galop is covering the pure Arabian racing, also the thoroughbred racing. And we have stewards in France Galop. They are all benevolent, but they must, as said by Graham, they must follow a course in order to be competent for judging racing, and they must be deputy steward during a lot of months to be educated, taught, and to be able to judge racing. So it is a difficult position, and we have in France, but I think it's the same in a lot of countries, we have 2 levels of steward. The first one are the racing stewards, and they are judging racing. And there is a second level of steward which can be used as an appeal committee. And when the trainer or the owner is not happy with the decision of the racing steward, he can lodge an appeal to the steward of France Galop, and then they have to decide in appeal what could be the right decision in face of that sort of litigation.
So that would be a higher authority than the race day stewards, yeah?
Sorry?
Higher authority than the stewards on the racing day, the appeal committee, yes? Yeah.
Yes, it is a level which is upper the steward of racing. The 12 steward of the France Galop committee have all the power of all the racing stewards, and on the top of that, the power to judge in appeal what the litigation which has been lodged by the trainer or the jockey or the owner. So it is a second degree, and generally at this place you can find very experienced person in racing. Some of them are breeders or are owners, but a lot of them have a very good knowledge of the judicial matters and the legal matters.
I see. Neil, you've been racing in the States quite a lot before you came to the Middle East. I'd ask you, there is a vast difference, I think, in the stewarding in UAE to the USA, yeah?
Yeah, I worked many years ago as a steward in Arizona, quite by accident. I actually went out for the winter time to to Tucson as the racing secretary. There was an unfortunate incident where one of our stewards lost a family member, and I walked in on the Monday morning to be called in and said, by the way, you're now a steward. So that was a bit of a drop. Stewarding in North America is slightly different, but there are a lot of similarities, and I think that's also something that I'd like to comment on, that the closer we can harmonize the way we steward, the better it is for the horsemen. Because there are a lot of rules and regulations in every country. They differ every time you cross a border. And if we want to promote international racing at a higher level, we need to make it easier for the horsemen to be able to pick up, get on a plane, go to a new jurisdiction, and not be completely confused. There are a lot of different rules, rule books, definitions in every aspect of racing, and the more we can work together to harmonize that rule book, the easier it is for trainers to cross those borders and obviously have some success, and it brings success to racing overall globally.
Thanks for that. But we do have the International Racing Conference and the what's the Southern Hemisphere one that we have, where all the racecourse stewards get, or not all of the representatives of the race stewards. Now, have you attended one? Do you know what transpires there? Do the stewards try to harmonise and have their appeal system like on a similar basis?
I haven't actually been to the one you're talking about. I was one in North America some years ago, and that's exactly what they were talking about, because as you know, in the States, they have state racing commissions. And again, you have slightly different rule books, but even back then they were talking about harmonization so that horsemen didn't get confused when they crossed the state border, because for example, if you're stabled in Maryland, you're within 2 hours of 5 different racetracks in 5 different states, and they all have a different rule book. It would be great if they all had the same rule book.
Yeah, I do know that they try to harmonise and discuss the rules, a new rule perhaps, or maybe rescind a rule or something. I know that does go on. But anyway, we'll discuss it later. Michelle, you're up there. Are you doing your day job, or what are you doing now?
I'm sorry.
Sorry. I'm talking about the judicial system in the racing.
Yes, as far as the difference among states.
Yeah.
That is a bit of a challenge. I think, thankfully for the Arabians, we don't run in every state in the United States, so we don't have 50 sets of state rules to be aware of. There's only certain states. There's not a lot of differences in concept, I don't think, but there's things that you need to be aware of. And sometimes they're track rules, state rules, drug testing rules, things like that. If you have a horse on a medication to withdraw, and you have to stay up on each of the different states that you race in order to not find yourself in a situation of being unaware.
Thank you. We'll come back to you in a minute or two. Mr. Ayam, how does it happen in your country?
I think I should speak in Arabic. It will be very easy for my people here, because my aim also to do like awarenesses for the Abu Dhabi Sport Court, which is CAS Arbitration Center in Abu Dhabi. I think the jockeys, they need to know there is a branch in Abu Dhabi which is international. في البداية طبعا أحب أشكر الحضور، وحبيت أن أنا أتكلم بالعربي، يمكن لأن الإخوان الجوكيز هم الأكثر الناس مستهدفين. يمكن في عندنا إحنا طبعا فرع في أبو ظبي موجود، هو فرع الكاس اللي هي كاس محكمة الوزان العليا موجودة طبعا، وأنا طبعا الحين in charge مسؤول عن هذه المحكمة الرياضية. If you let me, Pat, عندي small video. I have a small video. I will show you what the facilities we have in Abu Dhabi. شو الأشياء اللي إحنا موجودة عندنا في أبو ظبي، وليش إحنا أبو ظبي فيها مركز كاس للتحكيم. نحن نشجع أي حد حاب يشتكي أو أي حد يرفع دعوة أو اليوم هذا مركز عالمي، مركز طبعا المحكمين كلهم يجون من سويسرا. فياريت الإخوان اللي يشغلون الفيديو على اساس الناس يشوفون، ممكن حتى نعمل ريفرشمنت حق الناس بعد اليوم الطويل هذا.
Just watch the screen and we see what comes on, yeah? Thank you very much, Ahmed. That was super. And it gives a fair idea of there is fair play in the United Arab Emirates, yeah?
Yeah, that's why I focus like the club, the fans, the spectator, all the facilities we have in UAE or in Abu Dhabi, it's ready for anyone. And نحن طبعا في أبو ظبي طبعا متواجدة عندنا كل الخدمات متوفرة. الفنادق شفتوا انتم يمكن في الفيديو كان في فنادق، هناك مركز قاعات، عندنا اكثر من قاعه، عندنا حتى محكمين، واحد منهم الاخو محمد هني موجود كمحكمين. احنا في المستقبل محتاجين محكمين اكثر لتفعيل هذا المركز. قمنا بالاتصال مع اكثر من مكتب محاماه موجودين هنا في ايطاليا. شفتوا الاخوان عارف العواني والمجموعه اللي ظهرت في اللقاءات هذه كانت موجوده في مؤتمر للمحامين العالميين في الرياضات كلها. انا ما اتكلم برياضه معينه ولكن جميع الرياضات. احنا الحين في صدد ان احنا نحتاج فرسان يكونون هم محكمين عندنا في المركز. راح نعمل دورات ان شاء الله، الدورات هذه راح يكون فيها تحكيم، راح نستقبل قضايا كثيره. نتمنى من الاخوان في لوزان، لان المركز الموجود عندنا الحين حاليا هيرينج سنتر، مركز استماع. نتمنى من الاخوان في لوزان انهم يحولون علينا قضايا. في كثير من القضايا بدينا احنا نستقبلها في دار القضاء في ابو ظبي، ولكن هذه القضايا تحال الى محكمين بالتعاون مع الاخوه اللي هم طبعا اصحاب خبره في مجال الخيل، يقومون بتحكيم هذه القضايا. مستقبل كثير. الرياضه اليوم صارت رياضه عالميه، محتاجه انصاف، محتاجه عداله. الكل اتصور ما يريد ان حقه ينهضم. يمكن واحده من الخوات ام سعيد امس سالت عن موضوع ان الفارس اذا دخل هل اذا الفارس كان يعني هيز تشيتنج ولا يغش في السباق ممكن يتعاقب؟ نعم، في اي شيء في الرياضه ممكن تتعاقب، سواء انت كنت مستفيد او متضرر، سواء انت مدرب او راح تستفيد. اليوم الابواب مفتوحه. احنا حبينا نعرف الاخوان في جميع العالم، ونشكر طبعا هالمهرجان الكبير هذا اللي بتواجدنا احنا. هذا واحد من المشاريع اللي احنا قاعدين نشتغل عليها، ان احنا قاعدين نعمل اويرنسز، تعريف للناس. واليوم جاتنا الفرصه الحمد لله في ايطاليا ان احنا نكون متواجدين، وانا اشرح عن واعطي دور المحكمه الرياضيه الموجوده في ابو ظبي.
Thank you very much indeed, Ahmed. That was a super presentation, if you like. We just got away a little bit from the point of our conference, this rules and regulations, you know. Now, I'd just like to ask Mr. Debag, what are the rules and regulations, how are they formulated in your racing industry?
Alors je dois dire d'abord que je crois que la réglementation au niveau international est passée par plusieurs étapes. Mais mes collègues l'ont dit, il a fallu d'abord harmoniser au niveau international sur des thématiques comme le transport de chevaux, comme le contrôle antidopage et dernièrement sur le bien-être des chevaux. Je pense qu'au niveau des commissaires, il y a une réflexion à faire. Est-ce qu'aujourd'hui, on ne devrait pas professionnaliser ce métier? Aujourd'hui, dans nombre de nos pays, on a des commissaires qui sont bénévoles, qui doivent être formés, avec des codes des courses et des réglementations qui sont très très importantes. À titre d'exemple, le code des courses marocain a plus de 250 articles que ces commissaires doivent comprendre, doivent assimiler, et bien sûr avec des enjeux d'éthique, de transparence. Aujourd'hui, je crois que cette réglementation n'est pas seulement faite pour le propriétaire et l'entraîneur. Cette réglementation est faite aussi pour le grand public qu'on aimerait voir venir dans nos hippodromes. Il faudrait que ce grand public puisse comprendre la teneur de nos décisions et pourquoi on a pris et pourquoi nos commissaires ont pris cette décision. Et c'est très important. Et pour aussi les pays où il y a du pari, il faut que nos parieurs puissent comprendre nos décisions. Je crois qu'en étant un sport comme le football, il faut que nos règlements soient très simples à comprendre. Imaginez que dans un match de foot, on attend 5 minutes pour voir est-ce que le but est validé ou pas. Aujourd'hui, il faut absolument mieux expliquer, simplifier et faire en sorte que les téléspectateurs qui sont les futurs propriétaires et les futurs entraîneurs et les futurs parieurs comprennent qu'est-ce qu'on fait et pourquoi on le fait. Merci.
Thank you. Very clear and concise, I must say. Now, rules and regulations, you did mention one thing there about gamblers. This is not one of our, I won't say it's a problem, but we do not have gambling in United Arab Emirates and, of course, quite a few other Arabian countries. So we do have slightly maybe different interpretation of rules because of the gambling situation and the non-gambling. I don't know, Neil, you would make a comment on that?
Me?
Yeah, please.
Sorry. I think you're coming down the line here. Yeah, there is slight differences. we're in an environment where we don't gamble in the UAE, so we don't have that extensive parimutuel section in the rule books. There are some aspects of those rules that do apply to us. They're not too significant. They don't really, matter to us today. But I think going forward, where we see the International Forum and with the use of technology today, it's probably something we're going to have to keep an eye on going forward.
Oh, very definitely, yes. The other thing is, of course, that penalties, I don't mean penalty for winning a race, I mean penalties for doing something wrong. Now, is there a fixed scale of penalties, like if a guy does something wrong, he gets fined $1,000 or $2,000? Is that fixed with us?
Well, probably what we've seen in the last couple of years is when you're reading the rulings, there are other considerations taken into the fray, and that's probably something we actually need our own stewards to comment on directly, because I think there has been a slight move away from the concrete ironclad rule book to be a little more benevolent in some cases, which is probably a good thing. But here again, I think we really need the stewards themselves to comment on that.
Yeah, we haven't got one here, actually. Mr. Gadot, you are in charge of or control of the horses and perhaps the administration of illegal substances. Yeah?
Yes, but at the beginning we control firstly that the right horse are on the departure of the race. So we must check the identity of the horse before verifying that the horse has not received any prohibited substance. So the first step is to control the identity of the horse, and there is no difficulty with the horse's pedigree. Is the fact that he is pure Arabian bred or a thoroughbred or a jumping horse. And after that, we carry out a doping control, which is key for the regularity of racing, for the integrity of racing. You could imagine that in France there is a lot of punters, but not only in France. And you imagine that if there is some scandal like it was in cyclism or in other or sometimes in football, it's not possible for racing due to the punter who are there and due to the state and due to the public. So we must guarantee that the integrity of the horse is followed, and there is no difficulty with that. And in the past, we start with a good control in racing at the end of the race. But 25 years ago, we considered that it was not enough. And then we started in France, but not only in France, to control the training period. So for now 25 years, we send a testing vet in the training yard in order to verify that there is no difficulty in the use of prohibited substance, no anabolic steroid given to the horse. And 10 years ago, we saw that people who want to cheat take off the horse from the training yard, put them in a stud or somewhere else, and then treated the horse. So 10 years before, we started a control of all the carrier of the horse. So we start today when the horse has his first entry, is firstly registered in training. We have the power to sample it at any time of his life until he is permanently out of training and out of racing. So the control must cover all the life of the horse, and because we saw, as it has been done in Great Britain and Ireland, that there is also a difficulty for the breeding stock, we are going to start breeding control So from birth to the death of the horse, if it is a racing horse, it could be controlled, it could be sampled, and if we find something prohibited on the horse, and we have a list of prohibited substances which are totally forbidden during all the life of the horse. By example, anabolic steroids.
Complete life of the horse, yes?
Yeah. So the horse could be suspended during a very long time, and you saw that in Great Britain they started this year to control the horse from abroad also who want to enter a British rule. It is the same will with Ireland, and progressively we are extending all that control on all the discipline, and we hope that a lot of countries will follow us in that, because transparency is a key point, is prominent for the future of racing. We must guarantee that all our horses are free of drug when they race, especially because we have selection after that.
Thank you for that. But what about horses visiting for a day, for a big race, say for your big race, the Arctic Triumph or something? What procedure is carried out on that particular day of a visiting horse?
Well, when a horse is visiting France in order to race, it could be controlled before he comes in France, and it is the case with a few countries in Europe. By example, I received a note from the BHA a few days ago in order to sample horses, French trained horses, which has an entry in Great Britain, and we have sampled the horse, and in Great Britain they do, or in Germany they do the same for us. When a German horse, a German training horse, is entered in a French race, we can apply for control of this horse, particularly in training before the race, in order to verify that there is no cheat, no problem. Now, the integrity of racing, it's not to check the horse at the time of the race, because preparation can be helped by prohibited substances. So it is very important that all the control stay during the life of the horse and not only at the time of the race itself.
It's quite clear. The United Arab Emirates Racing Authority, they pre-race check, well, 99% of the runners, you know, so we have a check before, and then the first two, or the first three in a listed or a group race, Fatten race, they're all checked as well. But every winner is tested, and plus the fact that if anything runs, well, extraordinarily well on its previous form, or extraordinarily badly on its previous form, they get a test taken also. But thanks for that. Most interesting. Most interesting. Graham, handicapping.
Yes, what about it?
I think a lot of people would like to know about handicapping. We had one of our forums here yesterday, and there was in my mind anyway, there were one or two people perhaps didn't quite understand the practices and principles of handicapping. How do you and I'm not going to put your head on the block. You give me a rough idea, and I'm sure Pam will come into this also, as will Neil. But okay, you have a maiden, first time out, yeah. Now, what happens if he runs? If he won, does he get a handicap mark?
Well, I suspect that varies from sort of jurisdiction to jurisdiction, quite honestly.
That's what I want to hear.
But usually, if a maiden wins a race, yes, you would expect it to be given a handicap mark, generally speaking. And quite frankly, I mean, handicapping maiden winners can be extremely difficult, especially if it wins easily. And you don't have necessarily... In handicapping, you're always looking for what we term a marker. So you're looking for a horse that you can actually base the rating around.
Can you elaborate on this? This
yeah,
was a missing point.
I mean, normally it would be... You would hope it would be a horse that's been placed either second, third or fourth. and that would give you an idea of the value of the race. So if the horse, say, for example, finishes third and it's got a rating of 80, and the winner wins by, I don't know, say 12 lengths or something, that gives you a good idea that that horse could be an exceptionally good horse, for example, if it beat a horse rated 80 by about 12 lengths. But after, in terms of assessing how much that 12 lengths is worth, that can be quite subjective, quite honestly, especially if it wins easily. So until it runs again against more experienced horses, you know, some of these things are, with the best will in the world, are an element of guesswork, and a handicapper can't always get it right. You know, you don't always get it right.
It usually gets saved by some means, though.
Yeah, yeah. And you're never going to satisfy everybody because that's the nature of the job. But as I said, what you're normally looking for, certainly leaving maiden races aside, in looking at group races or ordinary run-of-the-mill handicaps, you are tending to look at the second, third, fourth, possibly the fifth if it's a close race, to give you an idea of the value of the rating of the race and the quality of the race. Yeah.
And would you consider does timing come into the equation?
Yes,
or not?
time, and obviously the distance going. All these things are all variables which affect how you look at the race and the surface and all sorts.
I'll come back to you in a minute.
Okay.
Pam, hello dear. Does it happen the same in your part of the world, the handicapping system? Yeah. Do you have a central group discuss this?
Weatherby's control it.
Oh yes.
And we all put our results into it. Or the secretary does. And we calculate the races, all the principal races, and the rest follow. So you all use the same. It's working.
Yes, very loud. Well, I'm on here anyway. So.
You all use the same allowances.
Yes.
So you end up with the same results. I mean, when England are rating their group races, I think maybe 10, 20 other countries are rating that race too and putting their figures in so they can see within a couple of pound.
So with international racing then, the ratings in one country pretty much equate to the ratings in another?
Well, it depends what level they're on. I mean, if they're using kilos, if they're using pounds, but you have a comparison level, so you know how everybody works in this system in pounds. So you convert your horse into, even if you work in kilos in Scandinavia and Germany.
We work in kilos.
Yeah, and you work in kilos. You can still put it into the... You have an equation where you can calculate.
Well, the man who equates them is the man just two up there, Neil. Tell us a little bit about your ideas of handicapping, etc.
Well, it's interesting today when we were talking about the international pattern, looking at races, comparing horses that are run in France or run in the UAE. And one of the things I picked up on was what you just touched base on is, do you look at times?
Yeah.
We were comparing a horse that had run at Longchamp with a horse that then came to Abu Dhabi. And the point being, the horse was Albon's, and before the race he felt very confident that the horse would run a big race because he was cutting back to a sprinting distance, and the horse liked a fast, firm ground. And he performed very well, probably above his international rating. So those are the types of things that when we meet today and tomorrow, where we're looking at all the international races, we keep those things in mind because there are horses for courses. And time is important, but it's important when you're looking at a horse that runs numerous times at a particular track on a particular surface. You can't compare times when you're talking about, you know, lush, deep turf in Europe and perhaps the track up in a lane. Different surface, different depth. So it all works together, and you just have to be very patient. And as Graham said, you don't get it right every time. But you do your best.
No, but it always turns out, I think, at the end of the day, you know. Handicapper always has an excuse. How do you come, supposing you're on a good handicap now, you've got your horses on the mark for handicap, yeah? How do you penalise them then? Go up one or up two or three? I'm talking about kilos now for the sake of convenience. They go up 1, 2 or 3 or do more, or if they don't run well, do you drop them immediately? I know the answer to that. The handicappers don't drop them, not nearly enough. But anyway, what's in the mind to work it out? Is it on the horses? Say a race of equal quality, equal standards, and a horse wins maybe 3 or 4 lengths. What do you think? Should I give him?
Well, probably the one thing that people don't know that aren't actually working handicappers is that most of us watch a race, it could be as many as 20 times, and on 3 different angles. Because we want to see whether the horse is comfortable, had a clear run, whether the rider had him where he needed to be turning for home. Did the horse have a chance turning for home? Because if he got caught up in down the backside, got shut off, got stopped, you haven't got a real accurate rendition of the horse's ability. And when that happens, it's very difficult to start taking him down the handicap scale because he didn't have a clear run and we haven't seen his best abilities. Having said that, you'll have a race where a horse will get away on them early, open up 3, 4 lengths, rider pulls them back a little bit, slows them down. The boys at the back of the pack haven't quite caught on that there's a rabbit in front of them, and turning for home, he's gone. It's difficult to put too much on that horse because basically the other guys got outfoxed. So there are so many variables in a race to look at. Depth of the track, weather outside, early in the season.
And of course, right turn or left turn, isn't it? That's a big consideration, isn't it? You know,
turf and dirt.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of things to look at, and it isn't just a question of watching the race once and going, oh well, he got me 2 lengths, I'll give him 3 pounds. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah. But there is the old adage, horses for courses, isn't there? Horses.
Yeah, and the other thing is probably one of the good things in the Emirates is in some countries the handicappers really don't have any relationship with the trainers. In the UAE, we know all the trainers and they know who we are. And we talk about horses, and I'll have a trainer call me in the evening and say, look, this horse hasn't come back too good after the race. That wasn't his best run. How you take that is your business, and you have to decide how you feel about that. But it's good that you get feedback sometimes, because especially when you were mentioning the maiden horses, I've seen horses break their maiden first time out by a couple of lengths. And that afternoon, the trainer will say, that's probably the best he is. And then you keep that in mind down the line. You don't let it interfere with what you're doing, but you remember that they don't think he's going to be a world beater. Whereas I had other trainers come in after a horse wins by 3 or 4 lengths and said, I think this horse is going to be brilliant. And I've seen you do interviews where a rider will come back and he'll have only won by a couple lengths. He said, he was well in hand. This is going to be a nice horse.
We had this raised its head yesterday at yesterday's one of our seminars yesterday as well. Some jockey, 1 or 2 people didn't quite understand how a jockey can say this can be, if things go right for him, a champ or not. I mean, how does this jockey know this thing, But anyway, I'm digressing a bit now, but it was a point that was raised, and jockeys do come back and they say, this is nice, look after him, or conversely, you might as well send him down the road,
Yeah.
But anyway.
I noticed, over the years, some of our trainers are here and they'll know what I'm talking about. They'll bring a horse to the trials and whatnot that they're keen on, and they'll say something along the lines of, I'm so excited for this horse, I can't wait to run this horse. So, they've got a feeling. They see the horse in the morning, they get the feedback from their riders. Big, good-looking horse is going to train on to be something special.
Yeah, but they do let you down the odd time,
Yeah, we were talking a few days ago, I think Halal's here somewhere, about trainers that will call you up and, the horse will just get there and you say, no, yeah, I figured him out, put him up. And 2 more runs later, he's on the phone going, put him down, he's a bum. So it's not the easiest world to work in.
Well, just thanks for that, Neil. I'm just going back to Graham here again. Give us a bit of an insight into what are pattern races, what are group races, How does a horse become a pattern race candidate?
Well, pattern races are like the icing on the cake, if you like.
Gentlemen, please listen to this now. I won't have to explain it the next time we'll put a pattern race.
They are the races for the very best horses, the top horses. And my committee are actually looking and assessing the ratings of these races. How a horse progresses to these races is really a matter, if it becomes obviously sufficiently good, it can enter. All pattern races are, in theory, are open to most horses, but obviously only the better horses tend to run in them because the poorer horses just would finish way behind.
We tend to put a bottom limit on horses below X can't, or won't be taken, just to keep
the poorer ones out.
Or the excited trainers.
Right. But basically, I mean, if you work from the very poorest horses are rated, I don't know, in most systems, sort of anywhere between 0 to 40, they're the really slow ones. A pattern horse is probably anything from 100 upwards, and they tend to go in numerical grades upwards.
But you do have a criteria for that. There is
Yes. So within our pattern race rules, we have what is the standard for what we call a listed race, a standard for a Group 3 race.
Can you just explain to us there? Yes, pardon?
Sorry, okay.
I'm not explaining, he's doing the explaining. Yeah. All right. Graham, what did I ask you?
What's a pattern race? A pattern race is essentially a race which has been given Group 1, Group 2, or Group 3, or listed race status. So there are 4 categories, okay? And of those 3 categories, we would be looking at the general level of the ratings in each one. So a Group 1 race generally is, the rating is about 100, a horse is rated 115 upwards. Group 2 is 110, Group 3 is 105, and listed is 100. I'm simplifying this because there are grades of this within whether or not it's a 3-year-old race, a 4-year-old race, and so on. But for older horses, that's the general standard. So that's horses that are rated 100 plus tend to be what we call pattern race performers. Does that help explain? Yeah.
I think the guys are getting the idea. Not that they don't know it already, of course, but a lot of owners, trainers tend, particularly in our part of the world, Neil, they don't like to have horses on a low grade, a low rating, yeah? They want to run it in a listed race, a pattern race. And what happens if it gives go up there and gets in, runs, it runs badly. So, you know, what was the point in putting the number up? You know, it's...
Well, that's a point of view, I suppose. But then again, you know, you do get, in all forms of sports, you get upsets. And sometimes people, you know, if people don't aspire to sometimes, you know, it's like what some people would consider a no hope of running in the Derby. Well, you know, so the fact is that, you know, sometimes the unusual does happen. So you can't necessarily say... you can deter a particular horse from running, or that they shouldn't run, because you never know. Particularly if it's a young horse, they may bridge the gap. And in my experience, quite often you do sometimes find horses run above themselves in pattern races that are not that good. That can give a handicapper a problem, because when it then goes back to its normal grade, it's what do you do with it, you know? But I know that.
We had an old saying when I was going around, he'd win a race at Sedgefield, you know, but there was another 20 fellas saying the same thing, and they'd all wind up in the same race.
Yes.
And you'd get a really, really competitive race, even though it wouldn't be of any
Yes.
quality,
Yes.
but the race itself would be
Yes,
off.
yes.
You know, but
Well, quite often what tends to deter people from, you know, if you like flying a kite in running into a pattern race is the entry fee, because if you put the entry fee fairly high, nobody wants to waste money running in a race where they've got no chance. So that tends to sort of put people off from running poor horses in pattern races.
well, thanks for that. Anyway, we'll have an open thing eventually, and anybody can ask questions. I'm not taking any questions. What? Sorry. I was going to talk a bit more, actually. Or how are we doing for this thing, for the time? I have time?
Il a dit, lui.
Well, should we start the question? Yes, Ari.
Moi,
Yeah,
je
but what?
moi, je comprends pas ce que les handicapeurs, les ceci.
I
C'est pour
reckon-
les entraîneurs, c'est pour les professionnels. Mais moi, il y a un personnage qui est là-bas. Il y a un petit jeune qui vient du Maroc, et moi, je vous ai suivi. Vous avez fait un travail formidable dans votre pays et dans le Maghreb. Vous êtes un exemple. Moi, la fois où j'ai été à Paris, que vous avez invité des gens à Paris pour parler de vos chevaux et du cheval arabe proprement, j'ai dit, ils sont formidables. Vous êtes une équipe de jeunes qui ont rehaussé, qui ont remonté le cheval arabe dans votre pays. Peut-être moi, je vais venir m'installer chez vous. Et
Thank you, my dear.
Oui.
Jean-Pierre.
Merci beaucoup.
I think that there is always a confusion about the pattern race, and we need to explain it a little bit more. What is a pattern race and how it is named pattern race and how it becomes pattern race. First of all, a lot of people are confusing and consider that pattern race and international race are the same, and pattern race and IFA race are the same. So we need also to explain that. Most of the race can be international in any country, and you have, for instance, most of the race in France, nearly 100% of the race are international. Most of the race in England are international. Most of the race in Poland now are international also, and in many countries it is the case. But those races which are international are not always pattern race, of course. There is big difference between international race and pattern race, and that has to be understood at first. What is pattern race and how a pattern race become a pattern race? We have to go back to a lot of work that has been doing IFA regarding that. A pattern race is become a pattern race because of the level of the horses running in the race. And to decide which level of a horse is in the race, the pattern race has established an international qualification, what we call the international handicapping, which allow handicappers from selected countries, 5 handicappers, through a website to register some races as pattern race and to give them a value which allows the race to become pattern race. This value of the race is established by the quality of the horse running, and it is done by a ratio over the last 3 years, which give the weight that the horses have been assigned for the first 5 horses for 3 years consecutive, the average of the rating. Therefore, every race has a rating given by the handicapper, by the 5 handicapper. Those 5 handicapper are handicapper from England, from France, from Germany, from Qatar, and from UAE. Those handicappers are corresponding through a website, and they are analyzing all the races over the world, in Europe and in Middle East and in northern in Maghreb, in northern Africa. Those races so are followed carefully by the handicapper, which will give them a rate, and the race that takes a rate and that receive a rate that allows them to become grade can become grade races. So this is the first point about the Group 3, Group 2, and Group 1. On top of that, we have the listed race. The listed race, which is the lowest race and which is given by the handicapper also and by the pattern race committee to some races that are sponsored and are sponsored in different countries and are supposed to attract a certain level of horses. Therefore, those races must have a decent price, money, in order to attract some good quality horses. But what is needed also, and what is very important, is that the pattern race is regularly, on regular basis, reviewing the quality of the race and can degrade or upgrade some races. The races must have a rate that is for 3 years consecutive, corresponding to the rate of the race. And if those races are not getting the weight and the rate that they supposed to have, then they can be downgraded or upgraded. And this is one of the work that the pattern race is doing every year on a meeting at the end of the year. One point very important is that this organization has been done in following what is done for the thoroughbred and copying what is done for the thoroughbred. One point very important is the fact that Arabian racing have still a problem of international recognition. And therefore, we need to follow very carefully the rule of the pattern race in order not to give some right on some races that shouldn't be and shouldn't have the rate that they are given and shouldn't have the level that they are given, because we have a problem of recognition for the pattern race, and we must therefore be very strict on the rating we are giving to the race, and not to allow some races that shouldn't be with the rating and shouldn't be with the grade that they have been given, should not have this grade. We have to be very careful on that then. I hope everybody understands those explanations.
Thank you very much, John. Give the microphone to the next one. That's quite clear now, the understanding of listed races and graded races, yeah?
Dr.
Right.
Sedrati.
Doctor, welcome.
I'm not going to speak about pattern races, but I'm going to speak about the interest of handicap. When you speak about races, flat races in thoroughbred in France or in UK, it concerns some 5,000 races or 7,000 races more in UK. So it's important to consider the number of races of Arabian horses racing we have in each country, to consider the interest of handicap. The interest of handicap is already done by the classification of the annual program of racing. If you have 100 races or 200 races, it is very rapidly done when you have 500 or 600 horses to have, with the classification in the program, to have nice handicap, not necessary to have handicapper to do the difference of the horses. So it is important to consider the point of the number of the races and the number of horses in training. That are the two more important points to speak about handicap. And in my mind, in many countries with Arabian horses races we have, when you have the classification of weight, of age, of distances, of money, and so on, it is quite enough for having a very good handicap between the horses. On the point of the pattern races, it is important to find a new rule for the Arabian racing horses because the point of the level of the money put in an open race can be helpful to fix the group or the listed race you have to consider in each country, because it will be very hard tomorrow to have Group 1 races which doesn't exist in some countries because of rules which are depending on the rules of the pattern of thoroughbred. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Doctor. Who else? One in the front row. What's her name?
السلام عليكم. فيصل رحماني إمارة بلادستوك. I will speak in Arabic. أخوي أحمد دار القضاء. أنا بسألك السؤال في هذا الموضوع اللي نحن عندنا مشاكل فيها في الخيل. حبال المحاكم طويلة. أنا عندي 4 شهور موسم، 4 شهور 5 شهور بالكثير. أنا استوي لي مشاكل سواء صح أو غلط، صح أو غلط. والخطأ وارد من مدرب، من مالك، من حد في هذه الرياضة، في هذه الفروسية، ويصير موقف عندي. نحن ينحكم علينا في خلال هالأسبوعين أو خلال اليومين أن كذا كذا يسوي لكم محاكمة حتى في نفس اليوم، نفس يوم السباق. أنا ممكن أكون صح وممكن أكون غلط، لكن بطالب بحقي لما أعرف أني أنا فعلا هاي العقوبة أستحقها أو لا. عشان أجيك أنت أو دار القضاء، أنت عشان تطرش رسالة ولا منت بتقعد 4 شهور، خلص علي الموسم. فأنت شو بتقدر تفيدني في هذا الموقف؟ مشكور.
عرفني باسمك. فيصل. احنا كدار القضاء طبعا بدينا نستقبل أمانة في الفترة الأخيرة، بدينا نستقبل بعض القضايا، قضايا مثل قضايا خيول، وتحول طبعا إلى عندنا في المحكمة الرياضية، ويتم فيها طبعا طلب ناس خبرة في القضايا هذه الخيول. ولكن أنا قعدت طبعا، أنا سمعت أخوي فيصل مش أول مرة أسمع قضية مثل هذه. كثير من الإخوان طبعا اللي هم الفرسان ولا الأونرز أو المدربين يمكن ساعات يتعرضون، هذه رياضة، اليوم الرياضة قابلة لأنك أنت تنظلم وممكن تكون ظالم فيها في بعض الأحيان. ف إذا بنطلع يمكن اليوم في قضايا على مستوى كبير في العالم في الرياضة، ما زالت تاخذ فترة طويلة يمكن بعض القضايا، وفي بعض القضايا يكون فيها البت سريع. ولكن احنا ان شاء الله من يمكن احنا كدائرة القضاء ما كان هذا الباب موجود، هذا باب جديد انفتح عندنا اليوم. تم طبعا الاعتراف او طبعا صار في قرار وزاري جديد بتأسيس مركز الإمارات للتحكيم الرياضي. ان شاء الله المركز راح يكون شغال ان شاء الله قريبا جدا. هذا راح يحل مشكله. احنا طبعا حتى بالنسبه لي انا في كره القدم، احنا بعدنا نفس الشيء نعاني من بعض القوانين المجحفه. كثير من القوانين يمكن مش واضحه عندنا في كره القدم. اليوم المركز صار مهم، شيء مهم. بس احنا كمحكمه، احنا اليوم في دار القضاء احنا نمثل الكاس اللي هي السلطه العليا لوزان. فاذا في حد من الاخوان، مثل ما قلت لكم، اذا في حد من الاخوان حاب يرفع المساله الى الكاس، فالكاس موجود في ابو ظبي. يعني انت بدال ما تمشي تذهب الى لوزان، ممكن انت تكون الهيرنج مالك في ابو ظبي اقل كوست والمسافات والى اخره. قضايا الخيول طبعا قضايا شائكه كثيره. اكيد في ناس يمكن انظلمت، اكيد في ناس يمكن ما زالت تطالب بحقوقها. موضوع القضايا قلت لك ياخذ وقت، ساعات بعض الاحيان يمكن سنه سنتين في بعض القضايا. هذا انا اقول لك حتى في كره القدم في اغلب الرياضات موجود هالشيء.
الجماعه عندهم محكمه للفروسيه. لو نستفيد نحن وصلنا الى لوزان ومحكمه، يعني انت مثل ما تقول ان اليوم بدل ما تصير لوزان تينا الامارات في الكاس وتقدر تتخذ اجراءات اسرع، في محاكم للفروسيه فقط، او شرطه، حتى في شرطه للفروسيه، يعني تتخذ القرارات بحيث اني انا يعني اخذ حقي في وقت مناسب، لانك انت الحاكم وانت اللي تدير وانت اللي تحط القوانين، في نفس الوقت انت الحاكم والاستوارت في هذا السباق، تحكم علي في خلال ساعات، وانا اضطر يعني لو استأنف اسبوع بالكثير، واتخذت انت الرولز علي يعني. فاذا في بعض المدارس اللي هي الفرنسيين مثلا، انا شفتهم عندهم محاكم شويه اسرع، عندهم قوانين اللي خاصه في القوانين اللي في السباق.
احنا اخوي فيصل ما كان عندنا، ترى احنا ما عندنا مركز تحكيم. الحين مركز تحكيم الحين راح ينشئ، يعني يمكن القرار في بعض الناس سمعوا عنه من اسبوع يمكن. ما كان عندنا، كان اليوم انت اليوم في الاتحاد عندك لجان، في لجنه انضباط، قضيتك تتحول الى لجنه انضباط، يمكن لجنه انضباط او هي اللي قاعده تحكم. استئناف وانضباط هي اللي تحكم. طيب اليوم في تسلسل، في سلم، في هيكل في الاتحادات.
احمد من العام
انت بامكانك انت ترفعها. انا اقول لك يعني هذا الشيء راجع لك انت.
اذا رفعته انا بخسر موسمي كامل.
تفضل. He wants the microphone.
Yeah, we have one man here has it, and then Ali, you're next, I think. Yeah.
لحظة بجاوب. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. محمد خلفان، حكم دولي في سباقات القدرة وسباقات السرعة. بالنسبة لسؤالك لعبد الله وعبد الله، إن شاء الله قريبا تتفعل المحكمة. حاليا هي موجودة وبيكون فيها بروسيجر أسرع من البروسيجر القديم. في اتحاد الفروسية كونا 3 لجان، لجنة القدرة واللجنة الفنية ولجنة الانضباط والقضايا. هذا لجان جديدة. لحظة أبو عبد الله، لجان جديدة متعلقة بسباقات الفروسية. طبعا إذا في عندك مثلا قضية كبيرة وهي مرفوعة بالمحاكم، ترفع لدارة القضاء، ودارة القضاء بتحولها عندنا في فرع المحكمة، محكمة الكاس، ومنظر فيها إن شاء الله قريب. أما بقضايا محلية غير الدوبينج وغير مثلا قضايا خاصة بينك أنت ومالك، إن شاء الله في لجنة جديدة حتكون من لجنة مكونة من اتحاد الفروسية.
مشكور أحمد، أنت تطرقت في موضوع يمكن تشعب فيه، وممكن أنا أوهق في هذا الموضوع. أول شيء أنا في لجنة الانضباط أخ أحمد، في لجنة الاستئناف عفوا. في الاتحاد إذا أنت تتكلم السنة واحد كمل مرحلة كاملة غصبا عن الحكام، والاتحاد ما قدر يسوي شيء. هاي اتحاد الفروسيين نتكلم عن الماراثونات، للحين ما يقدرون يتخذون أي قرار ضد أي فارس. نحن نتكلم عن الفرسان اللي في السباقات. أحمد هذه المحكمة ما تفيد للسباقات، عشان أنت يعني تقول لي الاستئناف ما استئناف. أنا في الاستئناف وأعرف هذه المحكمة أبدا ما بسوي شيء. ما عنده الشخصية القوية تتخذ قرار ضد فارس يركب غصبا عن الحكام مرحلة كاملة. أنت تبغينا نلجأ لمحكمة ما عندها قرار عشان فارس؟ نحن نتكلم في السباقات، ما عندنا محكمة. العام تكلموا على هذا الموضوع أنهم بيساعدونا من 2 الحين، ما في محكمة نلجأ لها سريعة. تكون المحاكم أخوي أحمد
احنا نحولها
نلجأ لها. أبو عبد الله، في تشريعات جديدة إن شاء الله بخصوص المحكمة، لا تستعجل. في تشريعات خلال 3 شهور إن شاء الله، ما قبل بداية الموسم بتحصل إن شاء الله.
أنا في لجنة الانضباط اللي أنت تتكلم عليها وأنا طلعت، لأن المحكمة اللي أنتم مؤسسينها أنا ما أشوف فيها أي قوة شخصية.
Right, that's that little matter dealt with then.
السلام عليكم.
عليكم السلام.
منتج ومالك خيل عربية من دولة الإمارات. سؤال للأخ أحمد. سؤال ينقسم على شقين. الشق الأول، السؤال الأول،
إيه.
أنا كمالك خيل، إذا أنا وديت الخيل عند المدرب والمدرب عطل الخيل والخيل تعطلت مثلا موسم كامل أو مثلا موسم واحد، نهالي الخيل هذا، فشو حقي أنا؟ كيف أخذ حقي من هذا المدرب؟ أو مثلا في قوانين مثلا تحفظ لي حقي أنا من مثلا تجاه المدرب هذا؟ هذا الشق الأول. الشق الثاني، إذا خيل تعورت عند مثلا مدرب، أخفى على المالك أن الخيل هذه غير صالحة للركض مثلا، وكمل لين نهاية الموسم، في نهاية الموسم قال لي والله خيلك ما تصلح للركض أو تعطلت أو تعورت.
نفس الشيء يعني.
في
نفس السؤال.
شكرا.
ممكن تعيد السؤال لأن ما مركز معك لو سمحت.
السؤال الله يسلمك.
عيد السؤال.
السؤال، إذا أنا كمالك خيل عربية وديت أسأله.
نعم.
أنا كمالك خيل وديت خيل عند مدرب، أعطيته حق مدرب والخيل صاحي.
نعم.
بعد فترة أن الخيل اللي وديته للمدرب عور المدرب بأي سبب من الأسباب يعني، فكيف أنا أضمن حقي يعني كيف أخذ حقي كمالك خيل أعطيته حق المدرب ورد لي إياه متعور الخيل هذا؟ هل في قانون أو في حق؟ لا، في ضمان يعني يضمن لي حقي أنا؟
شوف الأخ أحمد، بالنسبة للبيع والشراء أو مثلا تعطي خيلك لمدرب معين وفتت التدريب، لا سمح الله صار في شيء، طبعا هذا يلجأ اتفاق بينك أنت والمالك أو أنت والشخص اللي أنت بتسلمه خيلك، لازم يكون اتفاق زين، يكون مبرم بينكم أنتم، وعلى هذا الاتفاق زين يبين مثلا ان انا ابى خيلي سليم، مثلا أنا في شروط معينه، في بند عقد، مثل عقود الاجار مثل عقود الاجار، في شروط معينه بينك انت والشخص اللي انت بتسلمه الخيل، مثلا المدرب فلان او مثلا فارس فلان، او معنا ما في قانون ان انا برجع لك حقك، لا، هذا بين شخص، بينك انت، معنا عقد بينك انت والشخص اللي بتسلمه الخيل زين. لا في شوف، هذا مثل لا شوف ما في عقد رسمي، لكن انت بامكانك تسوي مذكره زين بينك انت والمالك زين. لا سمح الله صار في كسر، طبعا هذا شيء وارد في سباقات القدره او سباقات السرعه. لا حتى في لا الخيل متعرض في كل شيء، متعرض للكسر. ايه نعم. ما في قانون.
حبيت اجاوبه انا كمدرب، واي مالك يجيب خيل للمدرب، اي مالك يجيب حصان للمدرب كأنه جايب ابنه للمدرسة. لما يجيب المالك الحصان للمدرب، طبعا العلاقة بين المدرب والمالك كالعلاقة بين الأب والابن، يوصل ابنه للمدرسة، يوديه للأستاذ مثلا، للمعلم. طبعا المالك ما من حقه أول شيء يتدخل في أمور تدريب الحصان مثلا. الشغلة الثانية، لازم يعرف المالك قبل ما يدخل في مجال الفروسية أن الحصان معرض لإصابة في أي لحظة، ممكن يكون ينصاب في البوكس في الغرفة، ممكن يصاب وهو يمشي، ممكن ينصاب، ممكن يموت، ممكن ينزف دم. هذا شيء لابد أي مالك أنه يعرف الأمر هذا. هذا شيء ثاني. لا، السؤال هو كان نفس الجواب اللي أنا جاوبت له. لا ما في لا المفروض تكون العلاقه بين المالك والمدرب. لابد ان المدرب يعطي تقارير، خلينا نقول اسبوعيه او شهريه للمالك، حصانك في تقدم، حصانك مش متطور، حصانك مصاب، هذا لابد منه. عفوا؟ لا ما في تشريعات لا. طبعا في عندي سؤال، عفوا عندي مداخله مع نيل برهام. في عندنا مشكله نحن، انا كمدرب من الامارات هتكلم عن مدربين الامارات واتكلم عن الملاك اللي في الامارات. في بعض الملاك اوكي، في بعض الملاك يروحون يشترون خيل بثمان غالي، يعني بقيمه غاليه مثلا من فرنسا او من امريكا، وريتات عاليه مثلا ريتات 100 او 115 او 110 او مثلا بهالمستوى. جينا في الامارات تركض في مستوى ريت 60 ريت 50 ما تعمل نتائج. يعني هاي الامور لابد انه الاخ نيل برهام يعيد النظر في الريتنج. لما يجي مثلا حصان من فرنسا او يجينا حصان من امريكا، لابد انه يقيم، لان في خيل ركضت جت ريتات عاليه ودخلت في سباقات مع الريتات العاليه، تيجي متاخر مقطوعه ورا الخيل حوالي يمكن ب 20 طول 15 طول، يعني معناها ان الريتنج اللي جت عليه ما جت بريت مضبوط. لابد انه يعاد النظر في الموضوع هذا.
But we have to review things also. Horses come from another country.
Please let Neil answer.
Well, yeah.
We need an answer from Neil.
He needs an answer?
Yes.
Oh, fine.
All of us need an answer. Okay? Can you give him an explanation, Neil, please? And how is rating taking place in the UAE?
What happens, and we talked about this before at the trainers meeting, is over history we've seen horses coming from various countries where the ratings are up here, but when the horses actually run in the UAE, they actually run like this. Well, because some countries rate their horses higher. In the UK, we generally have to drop them as much as 20 pounds. In Oman, they normally come up 15 or 20 pounds. We're working as handicappers at these meetings trying to harmonize the weights so we can just accept them. In Qatar, with Ryan and myself here in UAE, we don't change the ratings at all, because when the horses go there, they run as we expect. When they come to us, they run as we expect. But you get horses from overseas, they come in with lofty ratings. We used to get a lot of complaints from people from Sheikh Hamdan's side. We'd get a maiden from England rated 90. He'd run in Abu Dhabi club and finish 5th or 6th. And then the trainer says to me, how can he be rated 90? I said, it's because they rate differently in Europe. In terms of the States, they don't have a handicapper. So we have to establish a number, and every handicapper has to do this in Europe or Qatar or UAE, because we have to look at the form and decide basically where we think the horse should start. No, Mathab and I were talking about a horse coming in from the UK, and he didn't want me to drop the rating, so I didn't. There was another horse came in on the same shipment. I dropped him 25 pounds before he ever ran, and he won his first start by this much, and he's never won again. So you can see there is a big difference, but we're working towards the harmonization of that, and each time we meet like we did today, we're trying to find ways to get everybody on the same plane so we don't change ratings.
Okay, Graham, how many handicappers is in IFAR? In the handicap, in the pattern race, as handicappers?
You mean on the supervisory committee?
Yes.
6.
Okay, so it's yourself, Hisham, Pam? No, Hisham not?
It's myself, it's Benoit from France, Neil, Pam Cordroy, Harold Seaman from Germany, and Ryan Skelton from Qatar.
Okay. So, can you just explain to the others all of them that are sitting here, just from you guys, the difference between like today you have a pattern race committee and tomorrow you have a handicapping, something like that as a meeting.
Yes.
So can you, I think you are 13 handicappers, no? Because it's not too clear to us. We want to know more. So once we have like a race of Sheikh Zayed Cup, which is the jewel crown, I think Neil was rating some horses that are coming from outside because in the US there was no rating. And we had an issue with something related to the way how the race it came, that we changed it to National Day Cup. And then you may raise questions upon these things. Can you just give us a clarification from the side of you guys? How are you doing it so we understand what's the difference?
Okay.
Because some do not still understand the pattern race and the handicappers and the things that needs to be like, you are all doing the same thing at the end of the day. You're just rating the horses and giving it the right group status, isn't it?
The supervisory committee is there's the pattern race rules, which are these things here, okay? And the supervisory committee is charged with the responsibility of applying those rules and enforcing those rules, okay? And so those rules have got various criteria for upgrading and downgrading races, and for so that's one of the aspects we look at, which is the 3-year average race ratings that were referred to. And we also look at the horses for the international classification at the end of the year. And so there are various aspects to it. There's one's the assessing the ratings of the races, then deciding on what are the standard of those races, and then we also look at applications for races to either to join the pattern race system, all of which are aspects of those rules that I've just referred to. The handicapper the pattern race and handicapper committee, which is a bigger committee, so that I've just referred to is what the 6 of us sit around the table and discuss, all various aspects of that. The pattern race and handicapper committee is a wider meeting where any country which runs a pattern race can actually, a member from that country can attend that meeting, and also any country that's also a member of IFA can also attend as an observer. So that's the 6 handicappers report to that main committee. So the main committee is like an umbrella organisation which the 6 handicappers refer to tell them aspects of what they've done during the course of their meetings. Does that help explain it?
Guys, did you understand it?
Does he have a question, or is he just going to carry on explaining just what I've tried to explain? Yeah. Do you have a question?
No, but just to answer to Lara about your question.
Can you, John, please?
Yes. What?
Lara.
Assalamu alaikum.
Oui. Good afternoon, gentlemen. I just, you had questions from the trainers, from the owners, now the jockeys. First of all, I would like to answer to the owner who asked about the consequence if his horse get broke or anything. I can have the same problem because whenever I'm riding the horse, if the horse broke during the race, for who can I complain? I think it's part of the game. As a jockey, when I get my license, I'm having insurance. So If I fall, the insurance will cover me. The trainer cannot be blamed. He sent his horse to win. The owner sent his horse to win as well. But again, you can buy a car, a brand new car, and if you're unlucky, someone will hit you. So for who you want to complain? I think this is all part of the game. My question is now, as a jockey, we are the first one who, whenever after the race there is inquiry, to be in front of the steward. I rode over 10 countries now, and only in few countries, when you go in the steward room, you are judged by people who basically never sit on a horse. I'm not saying they are not doing their job properly. No, sorry. But I believe you have to improve these things. We are talking about regulation. I believe in each steward room should be an old jockey to help us to explain our situation, because we are not driving cars. We are riding horses. Sometimes we are not able to take the decision we want to. They are animals. Sometimes they will go against our decision. And it's hard for us to explain that to people who never had this feeling with horses. So we can do something to improve these things?
They didn't give me the mic to answer, you know. Sorry to say that, but I have to answer now from my experience in sport. Because during the break, we were talking, me and my friend, about this. So I'm also a football player, you know. There are so many cases in football field. No one can answer this question, you know. You don't need judges. So, sorry, I will speak in Arabic if you want to. في عالم الرياضة مش كل شيء يمشي بالقوانين أو بالمحكمين. في هناك قياس عندنا، هناك قياس. تكلمت أنا مع أبو خاطر أو أبو بشر قلت له في هناك قياس. القياس هو أنك أنت تجيب ناس أصحاب خبرة. اليوم أنا لاعب كرة قدم، لا يمكن أن أنا أحكم في قضية خيل، أو أنت بالعكس صحيح، لا يمكن واحد في الخيل يحكم في كرة قدم. اليوم هناك قياس. فإحنا في إدارة القضاء الحين جاتنا قضايا في هذا الموضوع. يمكن أنا تكلمت مع الأخت لارا وأخذت منها بعض الأدفايس بخصوص هذه المواضيع، وتشكر طبعا أخت لارا، دائما هي سبورتيف. يمكن حتى أنا الوقت اللي كلمت فيه لارا كان يمكن 1 الصبح يمكن صح ولا لا لارا؟ فإحنا اليوم في الرياضة ناخذ قياس. القياس هو التحكيم مالنا. اليوم الكاس اللي هي أكبر سلطة في العالم، محكمة الكاس هي مركز تحكيم. اليوم الكاس ما تعتمد على قضاة ولا تعتمد على محامين. اليوم هم محكمين. المحكمين يا تكون خبرته صاحب مهنة أو عنده إلمام باللعبة هذه. ففي قضايا مثل هذه هو كلامه صح. اليوم أنا مثلا أعطيكم واحدة من القضايا. إحنا كنادي يمكن لاعب حصل على كرت أحمر، وبعد ما حصل على الكرت الأحمر ضرب سب الحكم، فتوقف 6 مباريات. اليوم هل أنا عاقب اللاعب هذا على الكرت الأحمر والست مباريات بس؟ لا. الحادثة هذه حصلت معانا احنا، فاحنا اليوم سوينا قياس، رفعنا القضية للفيفا. القياس طلع لنا في ال6 مباريات معدل 25% من الموسم كله تقريبا. هاي ال 25% انقطعت من مستحقاته. في ال 25% لو اللاعب هذا كان متواجد ممكن احنا كنا نفوز في ال 25%. فهناك قياس مختلف في الرياضة. القوانين متغيرة. لازم احنا نحمي الجوكي مثل ما احنا نريد نحمي الخيل. الكابتن المدرب الغدير هني قال اليوم انت لما تسلم خيلك للاسطبل كانك انت مسلم ابنك، وهذا نفس الكلام اللي انا قلته. فاليوم هناك قياس. يقدر هو يشتكي ابو بشر حسب القياس. اليوم لازم يكون في قياس. هل الاسطبل كان سوري يعني عن المعلومات البسيطه عندي، هل الاسطبل كان ملائم للخيل؟ هناك قياس. ممكن هل طريقه تعامل الاونر مع الخيل كانت جيده؟ هذا الشيء اللي هو يشتكي منه. يمكن هو حاسب ظلم ان الاونر ما استخدم، قصدي المدرب سوري، هو المالك يحس ان المدرب
ما أعطى الخيل حقية كاملة في الرعاية أو ما اهتم بالخيل ولذلك الخيل أصيب وإلى آخره. تفضل.
السلام عليكم. هلال العلوي. أنا عندي مداخلة مع أستاذي الكبير مصبح المهيري بخصوص الخيل اللي نشتريها من براتي، ريتاتها عالية، تركض سباقات عادية ما تحقق فيها نتائج. بموجب خبرتي البسيطة أقدر أقول الأستاذ مصبح أن اليوم الخيل ما بحدد أي دولة، ولكن اللي نشتريها من برا هي رقم تجاري. الريت رقم تجاري لبيع الحصان، لرفع قيمة الحصان، ليس تقييم على مستوى الخيل نفسه. أنا جاني خيل ريته 105 فايز ميدن فقط، ميدن أعطوه ريت 105 وما أريد أذكر اسم الحصان على أساس نلبي يعرفه يعني. زين، نزلت ريت الحصان ل 35 and he still finished last. 35 and he still last. So the rating outside of GCC is just business money. That's it.
Right, beloved audience, we've had a smashing. Is somebody else wanting?
Dr. Paul Gado.
Who else wants to talk?
I want to ask. Referring to
Fadl.
what he said, Dr. Paul Gado, you are also in France Gallo. Can you answer on that particular question? Because what we can see is that the rating in IFAR rating is higher. It's not the same like the rating that is happening with the thoroughbred racing. It's different, the Arabians, than the thoroughbred rating. And in IFAR, the rating is coming differently than, they're not using the international rating. You know, there's a difference in rating in countries and the others in UAE or others. There is a different parameter. Why, Graham? Can we ask you the question if we can ask? And then Paul Gado for France, for example. Because most of the horses we get from France, we get from any good country with good horses. And we want to see why the scaling the parameters is different between one country to another. If Graham, because you're the head of the chairman of the patent race and of the handicappers, can we have an explanation for that? Because he's very much correct. The handicapping is totally different.
Yeah, sorry, I couldn't understand the argument.
Yeah, because you didn't have the Arabic, the translation. I saw you, most of the things you didn't get it.
Oh, right.
I was looking at you if you had... I wanted to get it for you because most of the questions were so important because this is important as us. We want to know more and learn more from you guys, and if we have a problem, we need also your help to support because this is why we are doing such conferences, in order to have everybody involved, not one person involved or two. We are all working for the sake of Arabian horses to make it a better better races and better ranked races. We have high races, very big amount of money is being spent on the Arabian horses. So this is why it's too important, your involvement as rules and regulations, so important in this field, because it helps the owners, it helps trainers, it helps even jockey itself, so that they really bounce on one way. We have to go all the way to improve things. So can you explain to them why they are changing?
What my committee is doing is got nothing. What my committee is doing has got nothing to do with handicapping in the domestic countries, because all we are doing is assessing the races, the pattern races, for the purposes of grading the top horses. That has got nothing to do with our horses are handicapped domestically, which there may be lots of differences in the scales of the various ratings. We're only doing it, you see, domestically, horses are being handicapped for equalising their chances of winning a particular race. As far as the EFA type handicapping is being done, that's just being done on an assessment of of the top horses, of their overall merit. It's not being done for the purposes of trying to equalise their chances of winning in a race. It's a completely different method of handicapping altogether, really. Our two objectives are not the same. And you can ask Neil and Pam the same question and they will agree with me.
Okay, Pam, can you answer, please? Because you are always wise answering for his voice. You've always gave me advices, so I'm sure they can also listen to your advice.
Good. Around 15 years ago, Neil and I took several horses and agreed we felt England was probably £10 too high, or Abu Dhabi was £10 too low with their scale. But we were able to work with that because we could see it was the problem. France didn't have a handicap system at that time, so we found it very difficult to go farther with it. But now France has got it in order. What France did, what each country did actually, they took their best races, the best one they called a Group 1, their second best Group 2, the second best third, and it wasn't until the horses were travelling enough that we could measure these races to see if they were worthy Group 1 or worthy Group 2. And it's only now that we're able to see what group they really belong in. But then what we could see that there was a difference. But what we did, when France took the top rate, their best race, which was a Group 1 race, and said, okay, this is roughly 115, the second best is 110. So then I guess they started there. But that was starting quite high. So they were even as high as England compared with Abu Dhabi and Dubai. But then over the years, when we started, I don't know, 7 or 8 years ago, trying to compile what was correct and what wasn't, just to sort it out, what we did, we realised it right from the beginning there was a problem. And France, we said, try to keep it down, try to keep it down. Abu Dhabi tried to keep it up, tried to get it up, because we've got to try and bridge this £10, because at that time it was definitely a £10 difference. I think probably it has levelled out. Certainly with the top horses, it's levelled out. Domestically, it's difficult, because what we did with these races about 6 years ago, we thought which was the best race, which race in Europe or anywhere held the best horses that season. Was it the Dubai race? Was it whichever race? And we decided upon a race and took that race as the top Grade 1 race, Group 1 race. And then from there on, you work like a pyramid, and you're plucking in new horses all the time. So then you can see by the time you get down to 100, you're bringing in domestic horses, or 105. Then you're bringing in, and then you can say, no, that domestic horse is not that good. But the problem is, we started at the top. Had you started in the middle, but nobody knew which was the middle race. It was easy to see the best race, but it wasn't easy to see the middle race. Consequently, when we got down to about 100, all those bottom horses gradually have to be raised to bridge that gap. Can you see what I mean? The
but others. Is okay for you, Hilal?
It's fine, yes.
Okay.
It's clear, but it's not enough.
No, it's not work because it takes a long time to be sure that that race is that Pacific country's got them this high and that one. Everybody's trying to work it without other people being injured from it. You can't all of a sudden say, okay, we're going to put them up £10.
Yes, but ma'am, the point was with trainer Musabbah, you just explained about the handicapper, right?
Yeah.
And the point was to, with the trainer Musabbah, why the horses came from, for example, Europe or US or whatever. The rating 100 or 100 something, and then when they run in UAE, did nothing, even in the small races. This was the point.
Yeah.
And I think in UAE, the handicapper is perfect. It's not only good, it's perfect, the best. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. I think we have to...
I think that there is a way to be able to help this problem. And the way to be able to help this problem is on the handicap committee. We wanted, and we have proposed a few years ago, we have proposed to extend the rating to lower level horses through the handicapper system and through the connection between the handicapper. We wanted to extend the rating of the horses between the country on a lower level of horses. And therefore this would help completely to exclude the problem of the lower horse, because actually the main problem that you are mentioning is a problem when you have horses that are not in the pattern race system and that are not on the pattern race level and that are coming to run in UAE. They may have a higher level of rating. But if the handicapper on the website system are handicapping the horses of lower level and are taking a bigger range of horses to handicap between themselves, then it will avoid completely this problem. And instead of handicapping horses, for instance, only up to 100, we could lower it to 80 only, and then it will cover most of the horses.
Just one more. We just have time for one more, gentlemen and ladies. Mr. Khalid Al-Rahumi.
السلام عليكم جميعا. أنا عندي مقترح بسيط بالنسبة لهيئة السباقات الخاصة بكل دولة تقوم فيها سباقات الخيل العربية. لا بد ولا اللي نحن عارفين أن في عندنا كم كبير من الملاك الجدد اللي ينضمون إلى قائمة السباقات. فنظرا أن السباقات عندنا ترتفع جوائزها للأعلى، فكل مالك جديد يبغي يعرف شو واجباته وشو حقوقه، لأن يشوف أنه هو يصرف مبلغ ما يقارب 50,000 درهم سنويا، بالمقابل أنه يحصل على 200 أو 300. فلا بد أنه يصدر كتيب من هيئات المعتمدة للسباقات تنويرية لكل مالك جديد، شو الواجبات اللي له وشو الواجبات اللي عليه، على أساس نحن ما نطيح في أي مشاكل أخرى. شكرا.
ياسر مبروك.
ثانك يو فهد. اعتقد سؤال جيد من الاخ خالد الرحومي. بالنسبه للمشكله اللي بتواجه الملاك الجدد لما يدخلوا السباقات عندنا عاده، اللي هو جهلهم بالقوانين، جهلهم بالجوائز، عدم معرفتهم بالمتطلبات اللي لهم ولا عليهم وجوائزهم الماليه. فانا اعتقد المشكله ترجع المدربين كلهم على علم وعلى معرفه ودرايه كامله بقوانين السباقات، بالجزاءات، بالجوائز، بالاشياء هذه. فبطلب منهم اذا جاء مالك جديد يوجهوه، يجينا نحن في هيئه الامارات لسباق الخيل، ده الجانب اللي بيخص دوله الامارات، ونحن على استعداد لشرح كل الأشياء الممكن تفيد ولا تهم المالك الجديد من شرح مبسط لقوانين السباقات للجوائز المالية للنسب اللي بيتحصل عليها المالك والمدرب والفارس وعمال الصبر. برجع لسؤال هلال أعتقد كان بيقصد إنه الخيول في أوروبا ولا الخيول اللي بتستورد الأمارات بيستورد ولا بتعطي تصنيفات لأسباب تجارية. أعتقد ده سؤال. For Hilal's questions, I mean earlier he was referring to horses given or allotted handicap rating for commercial reasons. That's why I mean he go and buy horses like from France or UK and somewhere, and as he said, I mean he had a horse rated 110 or 115 and ending up winning nothing, or maybe I mean 50 or 60 pounds I mean below that rating. So, and the other thing is Ifar. I mean, how old is Ifar now? Is it 10, 15 years? So you keep meeting guys, I mean, all these years. You don't have you don't have a unified or harmonizing, I mean, the one committee that could make the rating in the UAE will apply, I mean, to USA or apply to ratings in France or whatever. So I don't know, Neil, do you have, I mean, one committee that could say, I mean, the same rating, I mean, for a horse coming from France will be given the same rating, I mean, coming to the UAE?
Yeah, basically, if this is working. Basically, over the years, I've worked with Melvin. Melvin Day is our senior handicapper for thoroughbreds in the UAE. And we've looked at years and years and years, and I mean, we're talking 20 years worth. And we tried to see where horses started off with their foreign rating and where they ended up at the end of the season. You know, when I was mentioning earlier, for example, with horses coming in from Oman, there's about a 15-pound difference. We go up. It's because history has showed us that was about the increase we needed to get the ratings where they belong. We have a similar situation in Europe where, as Pam was mentioning, over 20 years we've seen the need to bring imported horses' ratings down because, as Halal said, they just can't cut the mustard unless they're Group 1 or 2 horses. Once you get below the Group 2, once you get into Group 3 listed horses, they struggle to maintain that rating once they get into the UAE. We had a number of horses come in last year for His Highness Sheikh Mansoor that Majid had maiden horses rated 90, 100, and you know they ended up coming down to 60, 50 before they could win. And that was having numerous chances. So we've still got a lot of work to do, but we are conscious that there is, you know, some difference that we have to keep working towards.
Thanks, Neil. Right, well, it's the best seminar we've ever had, I think, and I think there was a lot of things sorted out. But look, gentlemen and ladies, if you have a problem, come to us. We've got all the experts here. Come, don't twitter among yourselves and fight and argue. Come and we can sort things.
Can we ask the panel, tomorrow at the workshop, will you be there or you will be having a meeting? What time is your meeting?
Our meeting's at 2 o'clock.
2 o'clock? Okay, so can we invite you to be with us during the workshop, just because there might be some question, or you can conduct us to a certain specification where we need to, because it's the workshop for everybody, to come up with conclusions where we can look to the future and amend what is need to be amended.
Well, when is the workshop?
It's at 12.
12. That may well be. We've got a meeting that's starting at 10 o'clock, so it depends how long we
Come
go
on,
on
Graham.
for.
We need you.
But we may well be able to come along at some point after 12, yeah?
Yeah, but
At 12,
if you
yeah.
can come around 12, 12:15, this way, because it's only an hour of workshop.
Okay.
It's not more than that.
Right.
Clap for them. We are going to have them.
Right. See you tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen on the panel. You did marvellously well under a very hard questioning, third-degree interrogation. Thank you very much indeed.